Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here today. Very exciting to be out here in beautiful Grand Junction, and as you heard, I'm a native to Colorado, so always love going to different parts of the state. I have a couple of colleagues here with me today. I have Stacy Burns, who's our VP of Business Innovation, and also Gina Sacripanti, who's our VP of Marketing and Public Relations. So feel free, if there's questions kind of later on throughout, we'll be around hanging out, but I just want to let you know that there's more folks here that have joined me today. So the conversation that we want to have, I believe, is a very important one today because what we are starting to see is a change in the way business is done. We're starting to see a change in the way that nonprofits are working. And I'd like to start out with the conversation around there's a need for a new vision and why that's important. And what we're starting to see is, there is a need for new ways to solve significantly old problems that we're trying to deal with. And what we're starting to see in many, many communities throughout not only the US, but also throughout the world, is people are using the powerful economic engine of capitalism to fund a sustainable model that is actually geared towards solving different problems. So people are using business to provide solutions to some of society's oldest problems. It could be poverty, it could be hunger, it could be homelessness, it could be many of these different things. And so what we're talking about now is this whole concept of something called the fourth sector, which I'll get to momentarily. But what I like to point out when we talk about what's happening here is that the economic rules are changing. People are more informed. We have these things called smartphones that we can go on and look at what's going on in terms of what a company does or doesn't do. We have social media where we can talk about some of the good that a company is doing, or we can point out the deficiencies of that. So consumers are armed with more knowledge than they ever have been before. And people are more conscious about where they're purchasing from and what businesses are doing to kind of solve this. And also what businesses are doing to give back to their community. And we heard a lot about that just now. Number one, what are nonprofits doing to create a better community for us, but also what are businesses doing to kind of give back and to partner with nonprofits. And this is a very important thing because that's what this is all really about. This is about partnerships between different sectors of the economy coming together. So this slide, and I'll kind of read you the circle piece, is that this is one of the most important things. I just want to make sure, if you remember nothing else I say today, at least remember this piece. There's a new sector of the economy that is emerging. And that is important because can anybody remember the last time there was a new sector that was created, right? This doesn't happen very often. We're probably not going to see the birth of a new sector of the economy again in our lifetime, and we're seeing it now. And so we're all very familiar with the private sector there on the left. We're familiar with the public sector there at the top. And for those of you in the room who may not have heard this, on the far right it says the plural sector. And this is something that has been traditionally called the nonprofit sector or the third sector. So a couple of years ago, Stanford said, you know what, we're gonna rename it. We're gonna call it the plural sector. One, to kind of give it a broader implication of what this does, but also to give way to this new sector, which is called the fourth sector. And again, what I tell people is that this is just kind of a placeholder. It hasn't been named yet, but folks are talking about this fourth sector as a separate thing, a separate entity, and it really is a combination of these two things. So it's a combination between private and it's a combination between plural. So what this means is there are businesses that are providing mission-based services and they're generating revenue to sustain that mission. So there are things called mission-driven businesses. There is a balance between a conscious capitalist, somebody who has a business that has a higher purpose. So what we're seeing is really kind of blurring of the lines as we see this new sector where people are really interested in solving those problems but using the economic engine of capitalism for good and not just simply for gain. And what we're seeing is a hybrid, and this is a hybrid between a for-profit and a nonprofit. We're seeing the best of the for-profit world come together in this business. We're seeing the best of the nonprofit world come together in this business. And they're using this powerful economic engine to solve social issues and provide more value back to their communities. So there's this whole notion of a new sector of the economy that we're going to talk about. This is really a slide that shows you the continuum of what's going on. So on the far left-hand side in the gray, this is a traditional nonprofit or charity. On the far right, it talks about a traditional for-profit company. And when we talk about something called a social impact business, it's these four things that are the colored things on here in the bottom. And these four different things is what we would refer to as the fourth sector of the economy. So it's these types of businesses that are providing this type of impact back back to the community. So just a quick raise of hands as I go through this. How many people, on the far left it says social enterprise, how many people have heard of a social enterprise business before? Okay. How about a social business? A couple people. How about conscious capitalism? Okay. And the last one is public benefit corporation or a certified B Corp. All right. So typically when I start out at the left side and go right, that's when people kind of hear less and less. So you guys actually have a good working knowledge of kind of what this is. And this is exciting because what we're starting to see now are these new types of businesses come available. And when I say business, I'm including nonprofits in that as well, because what we're seeing now is that nonprofits are forming businesses. Nonprofits are creating companies, and sometimes it's a separate standalone business. Sometimes we are actually seeing nonprofits that are actually starting for-profit entities that generate money that go back to the parent organization to help to create more impact for their mission. So we're seeing some very, very innovative business models that are coming to light with this new way of thinking and this new type of economy. And so this is really exciting, but at the same time it can really kind of be confusing as you tell people the different names, what this means, what this doesn't mean, etc. So you start to the left-hand side of this, that we have social enterprise in that blue, and then we have social business there as well. And a lot of people will say, well, Jonathan, social enterprise, that means you have to be a nonprofit to do that. And that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of nonprofits that happen to be a social enterprise. A social enterprise is a mission-driven business. They start out a little bit different than a business, where a business will say, I want to have my business plan, I'm going to sell a product or service, etc. Where these nonprofits are saying, we have a social issue that we'd like to solve. We want to take a crack at solving hunger. We want to take a crack at solving poverty, unemployment, at-risk youth, etc. And then we're going to develop a specific business plan to do that. But our primary purpose and the primary reason of why we exist is to solve a social issue. And so this kind of changes a lot of things, right? Because what we're starting to see now is that, one, businesses are changing because they're doing more of this work in a mission-based way, and nonprofits are changing, and nonprofits are evolving because they're using this powerful economic engine of capitalism to solve these social issues and provide more value back to their communities. So on the social enterprise side, we have a number of nonprofits that are using this. Social business is another way to look at this, where you have a commercial goal and a social goal that come together to provide a solution to a problem. And again, there are a lot of nonprofits that will do that work, but there are also some for-profits in there. Then as you move forward to the right a little bit more, that next blue one is conscious capitalism. And I'll give you some examples here in a moment of each of these. But conscious capitalism is a business, and that's a for-profit company, that has a business with a higher purpose. And so they're still there to make money, to generate revenue, but they believe in something greater than just the profit-making portion of their business. And then finally you get to the far right where there's a public benefit corporation, and this is an entirely new legal structure. And this is something that's legal here in Colorado. It's been legal since about 2013, and it's legal in about 36 other states. What's unique about that is that we're starting to see different designations for business to operate under a different model. And this is the first generation model. There's something called a L3C. It's not legal here, it's legal in other states. Texas has their own kind of social impact model. Washington State has their own as well. Different states are doing different things, and they're experimenting with this. So I think you're going to see other types of designations right now for companies to create and form under. But what I think is really important is this, I'm going to make this comment as well, is that in the past I think it's been a matter of where you kind of sit. You're a nonprofit or you're for-profit and you have to operate a certain way. Now what we're seeing is, well, does that really matter? Obviously you got to follow the rules that kind of go with that. But in this day and age where there's a mix, there's a blending between these two worlds, is what we like to tell people is that it doesn't matter if you're for-profit or nonprofit anymore. If you're creating impact, if you're creating value back to your community, and you're using this model to provide more benefit back to the community and back to the populations that people are serving. So we're seeing that mix, we're seeing that blend. Which is really, really exciting in some cases, and I said in other cases, they have a lot of questions because this is so new and there's a lot of things going on with this. So that's part of what we want to do from an institute perspective, is provide education, provide training, provide expertise on this, as people determine whether or not, is this model for me, is this something that I want to do, and this is something that will work for a community. And what we're seeing is that people are actually taking these models and scaling them up and providing a tremendous amount of opportunity for their community and for the nation. So here's a couple of just examples really quickly, and again on the left-hand side, I'll talk about the example of a social enterprise really quickly. There's a company there that's local in Colorado Springs called Blue Star Recyclers, and they recycle electronics. And Blue Star didn't get into business of recycling electronics because they wanted to recycle electronics. They got into business because 80% of people that have an intellectual disability don't have a job. So high unemployment rates, but those people want to work and can work. However, for the most part, nobody gives them the opportunity to do that. So a lot of these folks, will graduate high school, and that's the pinnacle of their life. You graduate high school, and now you're done. And now what do? They sit in day treatment centers, and these people want to work. They want to have meaning and purpose, and they want to go out into the world and provide contribution. So the CEO, Bill Morris, said, I'm going to create an opportunity for these people to actually go to work. And it just so happens that this fit the bill for that population. They like repetitive tasks. They like taking computers apart. They like stripping down electronics and using those pieces that will go to, one, they're keeping things out of a landfill, but two, they're providing people the opportunity to work. And three, when it comes to the benefit they're providing for society, is you've got people now that they're saving taxpayers money. They have people that are providing purpose, and he's actually creating health benefits for folks. So Bill will tell the story that the 4 original folks that he hired, all of them were having seizures. Some of them were having 2 or 3 seizures a day, some once a week, etc. But he said what happened over time, which is fascinating, is they went from 1 seizure a day to 1 a week, to 1 a week to 2 a week, to now once a year, and in some cases, folks are not having seizures anymore. And he attributes that to the fact that these folks have an opportunity to go back to work. They now have purpose and meaning in their life because they're contributing to something greater. And so this is a perfect example of a social enterprise because they're providing jobs and opportunities to folks, and they're providing them the economic ability to go out and be a little bit more independent. But at the same time, they're providing it through a business model versus a traditional model for a nonprofit or traditional business model. And so that's just kind of one example of just a local, folks that have done some good work. The other example there that you can probably barely make out is Tom's Shoes. And I'm sure a number of people have heard of Tom's Shoes, and they're one of the ones that created the 1-for-1 model. You buy 1 pair of shoes, they give 1 pair away. And Tom's Shoes, same thing, is they were not created to be a shoe company, and their founder will tell you, it's like, I didn't create a shoe making company, even though that's exactly what they do, right? Their whole mission is to save lives, and so what they found is they're trying to give shoes to folks that are impoverished, because literally in different parts of the world where there's a lot of poverty and folks can't afford to buy shoes, it's actually killing kids. It's weakening their immune systems because they're walking around and they're ingesting toxins and poisons to the soles of their feet, and it's killing them. And so they created a company, again, not to make shoes, but they created a company because that was a sustainable solution to help people. Now, Tom's is the largest social enterprise in the US, and they're also kind of a cautionary tale, right? They scaled so quickly, they provided so many shoes to people that the very act of giving those shoes to some of the places throughout the world actually destroyed some of the local economies that were manufacturing shoes. And so I always like to watch and see what they're doing because they're conscious of this. So they're pivoting now. They're actually investing in factories. They're actually investing in the opportunity to give people jobs and work and making it meaningful. But those are just kind of 2 quick examples. The other few is just a social business. The Better Business Bureau is a perfect example of a social business. We have a nonprofit mission of providing trust in the marketplace and providing free information on businesses to the community. And with that, we actually charge a fee for an accreditation to be able to give that service back to a community. We are not a social enterprise in the sense where they're trying to solve a social problem. We are a social business in that we have a commercial goal and a social goal at the same time. As you move to the right, Whole Foods is a company that we're probably familiar with, and we'll see what happens now that Amazon bought them, right? Could be very interesting. But similar to that, again, for-profit company designed to make money. John Mackey was the co-CEO and the co-founder. And he'll tell you the same type of thing. He'll tell you that, I didn't start Whole Foods because I wanted to own a grocery store. That's not why I did it. I created Whole Foods so that I could solve poverty, and I could solve poverty throughout the world. And he picked that model because he said, in many, many parts of the world, many of those economies are based on agriculture. And so if I'm going to create an impact in those economies, I'm going to have to do it through an agricultural-based model. So I'm going to start a grocery store that purchases products from people throughout the world, but I'm going to tell them to farm ethically and sustainably. And a lot of the companies that are in there are actually social enterprise types of businesses. And if you can afford whole paycheck, right, you go there and you'll buy some really, really good food that's good for you. But at the end of the day, you're going to pay more. You're going to pay more money for that. And 25 years ago, people said, this is never going to fly. You're never going to start a grocery place where it focuses on these things and you're going to pay more money. And look what's happening now. He started a whole trend. Now we've got Trader Joe's, which has been around, similar type of model, similar type of frame, but it's a little bit cheaper. You've got Sprouts Market, you've got Wegmans, and you've got other people that are following. This is now kind of more of a trend that we're seeing versus just kind of a niche market. This is something that consumers have said, we want this. Number one, we want more transparency in terms of what we're purchasing. We want to know where it came from. We want to know where it was sourced. We want to know that it's sustainable. And we want to know that it's good for us. We want to make sure that we're not giving terrible food to our children and grandchildren. We want to make sure that we're providing them with good healthy food. And so that's what they have created. Again, it's a for-profit model. They're there to make money, but at the same time they have a higher purpose. And that higher purpose is, how can we solve some of the poverty issues that are throughout the world? And you'll see a number of different conscious capitalist companies will do those types of things. And then finally, on the right here, the Public Benefit Corporation, Patagonia, is a really, really good example of a company that does this. So they are a certified B Corp, which is like the Ferrari of certifications. You get that, and that's extraordinarily meaningful. And they are also a public benefit company. And so a public benefit company basically gives you, if for those of you, CEOs of for-profits in the room, you'll know this, is that if your job as a CEO is to make profit, period. If you start giving that money away, what are your shareholders going to do? They're not going to be happy, right? So folks said that we need a different model for a for-profit company. And then so this public benefit model came up where people said, all right, well now we can give up to 10% of our revenue to whatever we decide. It can go to R&D, it can go to a nonprofit or a charitable donation, or we can invest that into infrastructure, we can invest that into clean energy, we can do that in terms of sustainability. And so Patagonia is a perfect example because, once again, you're going to pay more for their product or service. It's designed to last longer, but it's also geared around sustainable efforts from an environmental perspective. And so for folks that like to do that are going to pay for that. And here's the perfect example that this is alive and well. So some of you might remember this. So a couple years ago, Black Friday, right, the busiest shopping holiday of the year, Patagonia said, we're going to donate on that day, we're going to donate everything we make. Not the profits, we're going to donate everything we make on that day back to trails and open spaces and nonprofits that work with the outdoors and those types of things. They anticipated they'd probably make about $1 million on that day, and they'd give it all away. Does anybody know how much money they made? Just throw a number out if you're not quite sure. I heard 5 million, it's higher than that.
27.
I heard 10 million, which is close. They made about $12 million that day. So I think this is the perfect example from the standpoint of consumers being conscious and aware and telling their friends, hey, I need this jacket, but you go buy it from this company because your money is going to go further. You're going to get more value from the dollar that you spend for a cause that you love. And so businesses that are figuring this out, and again, businesses include nonprofits, are figuring this out because they are saying, go buy from me. Don't spend extra money. You're going to buy a jacket, you're going to buy shoes, you're going to buy coffee, you're going to buy bottled water, you're going to buy, I got a pocket square here that's made by a social enterprise in Colorado Springs. It doesn't matter. It can be anything that you want. And so here's the example I'll tell people is that most of us drink coffee, right? And if you had the choice between going to coffee company A, that has great coffee, it's a local company, they're doing wonderful things with the coffee they make, and it's $3 for that cup of coffee, you're going to go buy coffee because that's what you do. But if there's another company that opened up across the street, and let's just say it's the exact same coffee, same roaster, same price, it's $3. But that company has a cause. That company helps put homeless people back to work because they train them. Which company are you going to choose from? You're going to purchase from company B because they're investing in your community. And through your daily, everyday purchase that you're going to make anyway, you're contributing to the well-being of your community. And then I'll ask people the same question. They'll say, so $3. Well, what if this other company charges $4? The research says that 60 to 70% of you will say, I'm totally okay with that. I will actually pay more for a product or service that does this. 8 out of 10 Americans will switch from a favorite brand that they've tried for years to a new one they've never tried before if it's got a social cause attached to it. And new research is telling us that 60% of Americans will take a pay cut to go work for a company that's doing this type of work, that has a higher purpose or a higher cause. And so there are some interesting trends here that we're starting to see. And this is something that's very, very much being done right now by the Boomer and the Gen X generations. They're the ones investing in these business models now. But let me just tell you, there's another generation coming, right? The millennials. They are hardwired for this. This is absolutely in their DNA. And a lot of people may not know exactly what this is called or how this works. People are naturally developing these models on their own. And I guarantee you there are models here in this community where people know what it is, and they say, yep, I'm a social enterprise, I'm a conscious capitalist, and I guarantee you there's others that have no idea. And I'll give you a great example of one. So the YMCA sits on my board, and I've been telling them for about a year and a half, it's like, you guys are a social enterprise. And they said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, it's this. You're a mission-driven business. You have a nonprofit mission of providing, kind of whole person health. It's about, well-being, and it's about, mind, body, and spirit. And you just happen to pay for all that for your gym membership. You go to another gym and work out and have good equipment there, but they don't invest back in the community, right, like the YMCA does. And they do this all over the nation. So that's an example of somebody that's been doing this for a very, very long time that provides tremendous amount of value back to the community and invests back in the community to help solve social issues. And so what we're seeing right now is just kind of this merger between profit and purpose, mission and margin. They're coming together now, and they're providing a lot more value. So this next slide, you can see 49%. I'll tell you what that is. For nonprofits here in the room, this is something that all of us need to pay attention to, because this is research that's come from the BBB Wise Giving Alliance. And what they're saying is this, that 49% they're saying is, that is the decrease from the millennial generation of giving to nonprofits. And you can kind of look at that and go, and this is the first time this has happened from a generational standpoint. The millennials are not giving as much money. And the first part of this is like, millennials don't have a lot of money to give, right? They're kind of coming into their careers, they're getting ready to buy a home, and those types of things. But the second part of this, and again, it's not that millennials don't want to give to charity or to nonprofits, it's really a matter of they don't have the money to give now, but they want to provide impact immediately. And so guess what they do? They use their smartphones, they go online, and they research businesses that they want to buy from, and they're going to buy from the businesses that are doing all those things I just showed you. So they're going to buy from Tom's Shoes, they're going to buy from Patagonia, they're going to buy a Newman's Own, they're going to buy from REI, they're going to buy from these companies that fit their values, and they're providing more because their money is going further back to the community. And why not, right? So again, all of us have a regular budget that we buy food and clothing and everything else from. It's really easy to make that purchase from, I'm going to buy this anyway, to a socially conscious business, a social impact business that's doing this, that's going to go back to my community, and then I'm done. I'm really good. And so that's what's happening right now with millennials. They're still giving to charities, but this is something that, again, from the standpoint of a trend that I think all of us need to pay attention to. And for myself, working in nonprofits, most of my professional career, this is absolutely something we want to make sure we're telling people about. Is just be aware this is happening. I have no idea what the future is going to hold for this, but this is something that we all need to kind of pay attention to. And again, I think for a lot of nonprofits to take advantage of, because if you can develop a model today in preparation for what's to come, or you just develop the model today because there's not as much money that's going around and you're generating your own, then that's a lot different in terms of the strategy that you can have in terms of how this works. The other thing I like to tell people is this, is that when I worked for the other company, Aspen Point, down in Colorado Springs, this is what was nice about that. When we were generating our own revenue coming in through a number of different businesses that we had, we were able to choose the specifics of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And the other piece that was interesting to us is that, because there was a recession that we were just kind of coming out of, right? And during that recession, we actually grew. And this is the thing that tells me that we need to do something like this. We need to be more innovative in terms of how we operate, because in the time of greatest need, right, when there's recessions and there's no money, that's when people need the most help and they require the most care. And it's in those times when it's harder to do that. It's harder to provide that service. And so what I love about this model is really the notion that you're in control of your own destiny, because you're out there generating the money, you decide where it goes, and it allows you to pivot, it allows you to be creative and innovative and go out there and do different things. And so it's giving nonprofits the tools that businesses have to be innovative. And for a business, because a lot of business owners in here, we just heard from them, are already doing this. They're giving back to their communities. They're doing it because they care. They're doing it because they're passionate. And again, all of us as human beings we all have a cause that we're passionate for. It could be military veterans. It could be the disabled. It could be the impoverished, or whoever. And now what we're saying is, you have a third choice. So we've all been told that you have two options in life, right? Go work for a nonprofit, be fulfilled, provide value back to your community, but we're not going to pay you that much to do it. Go work for a for-profit, make a lot of money, but then in that same sense, people have said, well, I want to do more. So they join a board of directors, they give money back, they get involved, they get engaged, but they were separate. This new sector of the economy is now saying you have a third option. You can combine both of those and you can do both at the same time. And this is what I think is fundamentally important for all of us to know is that, well, wait a second, you can do that? I didn't know you could do that. And so people are learning more and more about how this provides more opportunity for them and more options for them to provide value. This is a slide of a gentleman called Larry Fink. And this is kind of the for-profit side. So Larry, anybody here have a 401k? You guys are probably buying shares from Larry. He's the CEO of a company called BlackRock. And they are the largest investment firm, I think, in the world. They're about a $6.2 trillion operation. Every year, Larry writes a letter to CEOs on market trends and analysis and what he thinks is going to be happening. And this is interesting because this year, and you can Google him, and Larry has something called it's a letter called A Sense of Purpose. And what he's talking about in this letter is to CEOs, he's saying, if you are just pursuing a profit and a bottom line in the economy of the future, you're probably not going to be in business anymore. You're going to have to do both. You're going to have to make money and provide benefit back to your community and provide value back to the community. You got to do both. And this was probably about 4 weeks ago now. It was right before the World Economic Forum. So he sent this out to people, and you had the majority of people said, yeah, you're right, we're seeing these trends too. You had some people who were like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. That's not what business should be doing. But a lot of people have already seen the switch. They've seen the trend kind of going this way. So this is what they were talking about in some cases at the World Economic Forum. But I think it's just a good reminder, if you've got the CEO of a major company whose primary purpose is to make profit, telling people as an investor in the marketplace and letting people know, hey, in a couple of years, this is going to be more mainstream. This is kind of good for all of us to know. We got to think beyond the bottom line. We got to think beyond just the simple act of profit making, and we got to join that profit making with this whole notion of creating higher purpose. And when you combine both of those together, you create enormous amounts of social impact, and you create massive amounts of opportunity for your community. I'll give you just a couple examples, and then I'll wrap it up. So this is the book by John Mackey on conscious capitalism. Next to that is a book called Firms of Endearment. It was the early phases of what they were doing for-profit companies. The gentleman who wrote this book, Ross Sisodia, is a Harvard professor. So Harvard's done some research on what does this mean when a for-profit company literally breaks all the rules. And these are just an example of them. And I picked outdoor recreation for a reason, because of where you live, and because of what you do, and because of how this works, this is some low-hanging fruit for your community, to link the business with the nonprofit to create a social impact company that focuses on the outdoors. This is you guys are prime location for this kind of stuff. But these were some of the companies that were in this book called Firms of Endearment. And the whole idea behind this was we want to measure cumulative performance. So at the very bottom of the slide, we're going to measure the S&P 500. Up above that is the Jim Collins Good to Great companies. We've all read Good to Great, right? And at the very top, it's the U.S. Firms of Endearment, or the conscious capitalists. Companies that are paying their employees more. They're giving services away. You are paying more for their products. They are giving money away to nonprofits. They're investing in sustainability. They're LEED, certified. They're spending all kinds of money. And what we're going to see here is they're actually making more money in return. So this is fascinating. So at the 3-year mark, S&P 500 is a 57% rate of return, right? I'd take that. That's fantastic. You move up there, and the Jim Collins Good to Great companies, they're at 222% rate of return. That's even better. And this is what Jim Collins has told us. The conscious capitalists, after 3 years, are 83%, which is really, really good. These are companies that are better performing right now than the S&P 500, but not necessarily more than Good to Great. Then you go to 5 years, then you go to 10 years, and then you go to 15 years. And this is what I want to talk about really quickly. S&P 500 is 118%. The Good to Great companies are 263%, which is phenomenal. The conscious capitalists, 1,681% return on their investment for breaking the rules of business and operating in a non-traditional manner. This is something that we all need to pay attention to, because right now this is kind of like the silent evolution that we're seeing. And what we believe at the Institute is we think that we are seeing right now through this fourth sector an evolution of business and an evolution of capitalism, because again, it's this mixture between mission and margin and purpose and profit. So what will happen with this, I don't know, but again, it's something that we should pay attention to. With that, one of the things that we're also seeing, and this is something for everybody in this room to really pay attention to, is this whole notion of how do you measure this? How do you measure your impact in the community? We can measure this now. It's called social return on investment. This is another term just to kind of be familiar with. You've all heard of an ROI. This is an SROI. This is a way to measure what the impact is back to the community. We can measure when a company provides a job placement. We can measure when somebody provides a meal, what that has in terms of an economic effect and an economic benefit back to the community. This is extraordinarily important because now we can measure this for a nonprofit or a for-profit. And it allows you to tell the story, whether it's to a donor, whether it's to an investor, or whether it's back to your community, to tell them what your impact is. This is something that's now measurable. So this is something that is very, very exciting and very, very important. So I'll end with this slide and with this thought. Way too much density on that, but I'll just let you know that the Institute for Social Impact, the Colorado Institute for Social Impact, was created for this purpose. And here's what we believe. We believe that this is, as I mentioned, kind of an evolution of the way business works. And when I say business, that's for both nonprofit and for-profit. But it's an evolution for business, and it's an evolution of innovation of how we think and how we operate. And we believe that Colorado is in a unique position to lead the national movement on this. Why? One, we have a lot of nonprofits that are in the state that do some tremendous and amazing work. We are also the #1 economy now in the nation, Colorado is. And so that's what it's going to take to blend these two pieces together of a strong economic for-profit base and a strong philanthropic nonprofit base to come together to provide the rise of this new sector of capitalism, really truly this new rise of a new sector. So we believe that we are uniquely positioned to do that, and we as a community, I think, and as a state, we're starting to see people embrace this all over the place and are creating more innovation, more opportunities. It creates more jobs, it creates more economic impact, potentially brings in more tourism depending on how people do this. But you're also helping to solve some of society's oldest problems, like I said, how to solve hunger, how to solve joblessness, how to solve homelessness, all these different things that I know all of us are passionate about. This is another way to do this. Some of you are already doing this and maybe you didn't know that this is what it was, or this is what it calls. But we're very, very excited about this. Very excited to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and give you some more information about this. And hopefully we'll be in touch, and hopefully we can help some of you determine what your social impact will be for the future. Thank you so much.